Welcome to Blackwood Tales. Tonight's story begins with a new job, a quiet motel, a night shift, and a list of rules that should have been impossible. Some rules exist for a reason, and some rules should never be broken. Let's begin. I took the night shift at Blackwood Motel because I needed the money. The job sounded easy. Answer phones, check in late guests, make coffee, stay awake. That was it. The motel sat just outside town, a small building surrounded by dark woods and an empty highway. Nothing about it seemed unusual, at least not during the day. My first shift started at 11 o'clock at night. The manager was a tired-looking man named Frank. He showed me the front desk, the security cameras, the supply closet, all the normal stuff. Then he handed me a single sheet of paper. "Read this," he said. I glanced down at it. At the top of the page were 4 words: rules for the night shift. I laughed. Frank didn't. "Read every word." His expression never changed. Then he grabbed his jacket and walked out the door. I watched him leave. A minute later, his car disappeared from the parking lot. Now, I was alone. I unfolded the paper. There were 12 rules. The first one immediately caught my attention. Rule 1. Never answer a phone call from room 8 after midnight. The room has been empty for 30 years. I smiled. It had to be a joke, some kind of prank for new employees. Then I read the second rule. If a guest wearing a red coat asks for a room key, tell them the motel is full. Do not let them inside. I frowned. That was oddly specific. The third rule was even stranger. If you hear knocking from the laundry room after 2 a.m., do not investigate. The fourth rule made even less sense. At exactly 3:13 a.m., avoid looking at camera 6. And the fifth rule said, if you accidentally look at camera 6, immediately turn off the monitor and count to 30. I kept reading. The rules only became more bizarre. By the time I reached the bottom of the page, I was convinced somebody was messing with me. I folded the paper, then set it beside the register. The motel was quiet. Only 6 rooms were occupied. Most of the guests were truck drivers passing through town. For the first hour, nothing happened. I answered a few questions, sold a soda, made a fresh pot of coffee. That was it. Midnight came and went. Everything felt normal. I started thinking about how ridiculous the rules were. Then the phone rang. The sound made me jump. I looked at the clock. 12:04 a.m. I picked up the receiver. Blackwood Motel, how can I help you? Silence. No answer. I waited. Still nothing. Then I heard a voice. A woman. Soft, barely above a whisper. Can you send someone to room 8? My stomach tightened. I slowly looked down the hallway, toward the guest rooms, toward room 8. I remembered the first rule. Never answer a phone call from room 8 after midnight. The voice spoke again, this time sounding closer. Please. The line went dead, just like that. Silence. I stared at the receiver. Then I looked at the sheet of paper sitting beside the register. For the first time that night, I stopped laughing. I sat there staring at the phone. The room felt colder than it had a few minutes earlier. I kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe somebody was calling from another room. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe the room wasn't actually empty. I looked at the sheet of paper again. Rule 1. Never answer a phone call from room 8 after midnight. Too late for that. I'd already broken the rule. For the next 20 minutes, nothing happened. No calls, no guests, no strange noises. The motel was completely silent. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled up the room records on the computer. Room 8 wasn't listed. Not as occupied, not as vacant. It wasn't listed at all. I frowned. Every room in the motel appeared on the screen, 1 through 7, then 9 through 24. No room 8. It was like the room didn't exist. I checked again. Same result. That's when I noticed something else. The old paper map hanging behind the desk. I walked over and looked at it. The rooms were clearly labeled, 1, 2, 3, all the way down the building. And right in the middle, room 8. I felt a chill run down my spine. The room existed, but the computer acted like it didn't. A sudden knock made me jump, 3 sharp knocks from the front door. I looked up. A man was standing outside. He hadn't been there a second ago. I would have noticed. The parking lot was empty, and yet, somehow, there he was, standing beneath the flickering light above the entrance. He wore a long red coat. My stomach dropped. I slowly looked down at the paper. Rule 2. If a guest wearing a red coat asks for a room key, tell them the motel is full. Do not let them inside. The man smiled. Then he knocked again. 3 slow knocks. I told myself this was ridiculous. People wear red coats. That didn't mean anything. I unlocked the door. The moment I did, the man's smile vanished. Not faded, vanished. Like somebody had flipped a switch. His face became completely expressionless. He stepped inside. The air immediately felt colder. "Can I help you?" I asked. The man looked past me, toward the hallway, toward the guest rooms. Then he spoke. "I need the key." His voice sounded wrong. Not deep, not high, just wrong. Like several people speaking at once. I swallowed. "What room?" His eyes slowly turned toward me. 8. Every muscle in my body locked up. I looked down at the register, then back at him. The paper suddenly felt a lot less funny. "We're full tonight." The words came out shaky, but they came out. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Then the man smiled again. Only this time, the smile was too wide, far too wide. The corners of his mouth stretched unnaturally across his face. "You should not have answered the phone." My heart stopped. Before I could respond, the lights flickered once, twice, 3 times, and when they stabilized, the man was gone. The front door was still closed. The parking lot was empty. There was no sign he had ever been there. I stood frozen behind the counter, trying to understand what I'd just seen. Then something moved on one of the security monitors. A figure standing at the end of the hallway, directly outside room 8, watching the camera, watching me. And then it slowly raised one hand and pointed toward camera 6. I stared at the security monitor. The figure at the end of the hallway never moved. It just stood there, pointing directly at camera 6. I looked down at the rules. Rule 4. At exactly 3:13 a.m., avoid looking at camera 6. My eyes shifted to the clock. 3:11 a.m. A chill ran through me. 2 minutes. That's all. 2 minutes until whatever was supposed to happen. I told myself I wouldn't look no matter what. The figure on the monitor remained perfectly still, pointing. waiting. The seconds crawled by. 3:12, then 3:13. The moment the numbers changed, every monitor flickered just once. The figure disappeared. My heart pounded. I leaned closer to the screens, trying to find it, trying to see where it had gone. Then I made a mistake. I looked at camera 6. For a second, nothing seemed unusual. It showed a hallway, dimly lit, empty. Then I realized something. It wasn't our hallway. I'd worked there long enough to know that. The walls were wrong, the carpet was wrong, the doors were wrong, and yet, the camera label clearly read, Camera 6. A sudden wave of panic hit me. Rule 5. If you accidentally look at camera 6, immediately turn off the monitor and count to 30. Instead, I kept staring. The hallway on the screen seemed to stretch into darkness, farther than it should, farther than any hallway in the motel. Then I saw movement. Someone stepped into view. I froze. It was me. Same clothes, same face, same terrified expression. The version of me on the monitor was standing in the middle of that impossible hallway, looking directly into the camera, looking directly at me. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then the other me slowly raised a hand and pointed behind him. Something was standing at the far end of the hallway, tall, thin, almost touching the ceiling. I couldn't make out its face, only its shape. The thing took a step forward, then another. The version of me turned and started running. The creature followed, slowly, calmly, as if it knew it didn't need to hurry. That's when I remembered the rule. I lunged forward and switched off the monitor. The screen went black. Silence filled the front office. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. By the time I reached 30, I was shaking. I took a deep breath, then turned the monitors back on. Everything looked normal again. The motel hallway, the parking lot, the front entrance. No impossible corridor, no creature, no second version of me. I laughed nervously, a short, pathetic laugh. Maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe the lack of sleep was getting to me. Then I noticed something. The guest room keys hanging behind the desk. One of them was missing. I slowly walked over. My stomach tightened. The empty hook had a number above it. Room 8. And beneath the hook, a handwritten note. 3 words. He checked camera 6. I stared at the note. 3 words. He checked camera 6. My hands were shaking. I looked around the front office. The room was empty. No guests, no visitors, no sign that anyone had been there. And yet the note was real. Someone had placed it beneath the missing key. Someone knew exactly what I had done. Then the phone rang. The sound nearly stopped my heart. I looked at the clock. 3:27 a.m. The phone continued ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, I answered. Blackwood Motel. Silence. Then a familiar voice. My voice. Leave. Every hair on my body stood up. I nearly dropped the receiver. The voice continued. You don't have much time. The line went dead. I stood frozen, trying to process what I'd just heard. Then something caught my attention. One of the security monitors, the hallway camera. A door had appeared, a door that wasn't supposed to be there. I leaned closer. Room 7, room 8, room 9. My stomach dropped. Room 8. The room now existed on the monitor. A room that hadn't been there earlier. A room that shouldn't have existed at all. The door slowly creaked open. No one came out. Nothing moved. The darkness inside simply sat there, waiting. Then every monitor flickered, once, twice, 3 times. For a split second, I saw something different. The motel, but not my motel. The lobby was older, the wallpaper was different, the lights were dimmer, and standing behind the front desk was me. The other version looked exhausted, terrified, like he hadn't slept in days. He looked directly into the camera, then directly at me, and mouthed 4 words. "Don't let it cross." The screens immediately returned to normal. I stumbled backward. My heart was racing. The rules suddenly made sense, at least part of them. Camera 6 wasn't showing another hallway. It was showing another version of the motel, another place, another reality. And somehow, I'd opened a connection between them. The front desk phone rang again. I refused to answer. It rang a 3rd time, then stopped. A moment later, I heard a door open somewhere in the building. Not on the monitor, for real, inside the motel. A long creak echoed through the hallway, then footsteps, slow, heavy, moving toward the lobby. I looked at the cameras. Every hallway was empty. The footsteps continued, closer, closer, closer. But nothing appeared on any screen. Whatever was walking toward me, the cameras couldn't see it. I backed away from the desk. The footsteps stopped just outside the office. Silence. Then a voice spoke from the hallway. A calm voice. My voice. "You looked." I couldn't move. "You weren't supposed to look." The office lights flickered, the monitors flashed, and suddenly every screen showed the same thing. Room 8. Every camera, every angle, every monitor. Just room 8. The door slowly swung open. Inside was darkness. Endless darkness. And from somewhere deep inside it, I heard dozens of phones ringing. Hundreds of voices whispering, all talking at once. Then every monitor went black. The motel became silent, completely silent. A second later, the front office lights returned. Everything looked normal again. The cameras worked. The hallways were empty. The missing key was back on its hook. Room 8 was gone, as if none of it had happened. I quit before sunrise. I never went back. A week later, I called Frank. I asked him what was in room 8. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he finally answered, "Nothing." I told him that wasn't true. His response still keeps me awake at night. He said, "That's the problem." Then he hung up. A few months later, Blackwood Motel was demolished. The entire building was torn down. Every room, every hallway, every wall. Gone. But sometimes, late at night, my phone still rings. The caller ID always says the same thing. Room 8. And no matter how many times I block the number, it always finds a way to call back.
You've been listening to Blackwood Tales. If you enjoyed tonight's story, be sure to subscribe for more tales from the darkness. And remember, if a place has rules that don't make sense, there's usually a reason. Sleep well. Good night.